And we will begin with our prayers. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha, patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yes, so now we are in now the third unit, which is, I'm just going back here, where are we? Where did I say we were? 52 or something like that.
Page 52.
Page 52. Oh, yes, here we are, page 52, excuse me. We did inquiring from Guru. We looked at that already right at the end last night. And now we're going on to the importance of Guru Vani Seva. And, of course, there's the very important distinction to note between Vapu Seva or Guru Vapu Seva and Guru Vani Seva. We talked last night about Guru Vapu Seva. Vapu means the physical form of the Guru in this case. And Krishna's also got his Vapu. Krishna's also got his Vani. Krishna's Vani is Bhagavad Gita. So Guru Vapu Seva, we talked about, means serving the body, the actual body of the spiritual master by providing prasadam, providing living facilities, etc., that sort of thing. So now we're looking at Guru Vani Seva, there on page 52, just about around halfway down the page. Importance of Guru Vani Seva, and it's really important that, well, the first point that is quoted it's from Caitanya Charitamrita Antya Leela, the concluding words right at the end of Caitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada is summing up his whole presentation and of Caitanya Charitamrita. So he's making the point here. Let me just read it. Although according to material vision, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada passed away from this material world on the last day of December 1936, I still consider His Divine Grace to be always present with me by His Vani, His words. There are two ways of association, by Vani and by Vapu. Vani means words, and Vapu means physical presence. Physical presence is sometimes appreciable and sometimes not, but Vani continues to exist eternally. Therefore, we must take advantage of the Vani, not the physical presence. The Bhagavad Gita, for example, is the Vani of Lord Krishna, Although Krishna was personally present 5,000 years ago and is no longer physically present from the materialistic point of view, the Bhagavad Gita continues. So yeah, that's the sort of the fundamental, foundational idea. The vapu, the physical form, is temporary. And, of course, when we're in a position to associate physically with the spiritual master, we must definitely do it and render service physically, to his physical body very nicely. Provide him with very nice living facilities, nice prasadam, clothing, keep the place where he's living clean, keep his clothes clean, and all these types of things, physical service. We must do that. It's not that when the spiritual master is physically present, that we should think that, Vani's most important, although it's true, Vani's most important, so I don't need to worry about the vapu. You do. You should really make a special effort to render service to the spiritual master physically when it's possible. But as Prabhupada says here, in the middle of this little section we just read from Caitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada says physical presence is sometimes appreciable and sometimes not. And of course, as I'm sure you're all well aware, we just lost His Holiness Kadamba Swami Maharaj. And notice what I said, His Holiness Kadamba Swami Maharaj. We just lost him. What was it, on the 9th, was it, I think, or about not even 2 weeks ago. So his vapu is not available. It's not available. Up until some days ago, it was. His physical presence was available. But, devotees, consider this. Even though his physical presence was here up until a few days ago, how possible was it to associate with him physically in his physical presence? How possible? If you're from South Africa, you could only associate with him on the level of vapu when he was in South Africa. Otherwise, he was in Europe sometimes, he was in America sometimes, he was in India sometimes, and I don't know, maybe some other places. And you couldn't associate with him in his vapu. And even, I was in Cape Town when he passed away, and he used to come there 3 times a year or so. So his disciples there in Cape Town would be able to associate with him for, I don't know, a week or maybe 2 or something like that, 3 times a year. Means, I would say maximum 6 weeks, maybe 2 months, because he would spend some extra time there, maybe 2 months in a year. And otherwise he's somewhere else, and you don't get to associate with him on the level of vapu. But Vani, you could say practically 24/7. You can listen to the recordings of his classes, his discussions, his kirtans. 24/7, 365 days a year, and 366 on leap years. Isn't that an important point? And even when he was present in Cape Town, maybe for 6 weeks, maybe for 8 weeks, whatever it might have been, and maybe you could cook for him and wash his clothes, but there were a number of devotees doing those things. So you would only have the vapu presence, meaning being able to actually interact with him directly. It wouldn't be 24/7. But you can associate with the Vani 24/7. And really speaking, it's the Vani which is the important thing, the instructions. How are we going to advance in Krishna consciousness? By hearing the instructions, taking them to heart, and then carrying them out. So, when you really think about it, even though the vapu, while available, is definitely very important, but any time, even when the vapu is available, particularly when it's not, but even when it is, the Vani is always more important. So we got to get that through our heads. We got to get it through our heads. So the next one is there, Vani is more important. It's the same point. To carry out the teachings of Guru is more important than to worship the form, but none of them should be neglected. Form is called Vapu and teachings is called Vani. Both should be worshipped. Vani is more important than Vapu. And then this, at the bottom of page 52, this interesting little thing here. Prabhupada makes, you might be very surprised to hear this. But here in this little excerpt here at the bottom of page 52, Prabhupada says, so far personal association with the Guru is concerned, I was only with my Guru Maharaj 4 or 5 times. How's that? Isn't that really striking? But I've never left his association, not even for a moment, because I'm following his instructions. I've never felt any separation. There are some of my godbrothers here in India who had constant personal association with Guru Maharaj, but who are neglecting his orders. This is just like the bug who is sitting on the lap of the king. He may be very puffed up by his position, because he's sitting on the lap of the king, and people are coming and bowing down and dealing very respectfully. And the bug may think, yes, very good. Just see, they're respecting me. But they're not. So, but all the bug can succeed in doing is biting the king. Personal association is not so important as association through service. Okay. And on to page 53, just the next page. If you kindly try to fulfill my mission, that will be our constant association. And Prabhupada says, so far I'm concerned, I do not factually feel any separation from my spiritual master because I'm trying to serve him according to his desire. That should be the motto. If you kindly try to fulfill my mission for which you have been sent there, that will be our constant association. And then the last one, it's a good one actually. Please be happy in separation. I'm separated from my Guru Maharaj since 1936, but I'm always with him, so long I work according to his direction. So we should all work together for satisfying Lord Krishna, and in that way the feelings of separation will transform into transcendental bliss. And let me just mention an interesting point, experience of my own. Prabhupada in 1973 came to London. I was living in the temple in the center of the city, in a street called Berry Place. It's quite famous, the Berry Place Temple. So I was there in the center of the city, but Prabhupada came to Bhaktivedanta Manor, which was just outside the city. At that time, it was to drive from our central city temple to the manor was a 45-minute drive usually. So it's just outside the city in a sort of like a small holding area or a little bit of a farming area. Just, like half a kilometer from the actual end of the built-up city. So anyway, Prabhupada came, and it was Janmashtami Day. So I think Janmashtami Day that year, 1973, was August the 21st. And Prabhupada was going to install Radha Gokulananda at the manor. And they're the presiding deities there. They are now, but they weren't at that point, so he was going to install them that day, Janmashtami. So, of course, the devotees from the city temple, they all wanted to go to the installation. But it was Janmashtami, and our temple there in the center of the city was a busy temple. It was a busy temple, not a big temple, but a very busy temple, and we were going to have our own Janmashtami festival, and we did, and the place was packed out. So I was what's called temple commander. It was something, I was like second in charge. The temple president was Prabhu Vishnu Prabhu, who was a more senior brahmachari. So he and I, we were the management, basically, of the temple, and there were like at least 50 devotees living in the temple at least. So he came up to me, and in his way, he had his way. He was, he's a really nice fellow, and we're still very much in touch. But he came up to me and said, well, one of us will have to stay. One of us can go to the deity installation at the manor. One of us will have to stay because it's Janmashtami, and one of us will have to stay and run the program. Well, devotees, take a guess who had to stay. Yes, you're right. That was me. I had to stay. So, everyone went out to the manor like early, 7 o'clock or something in the morning. And I was there, and, there was a whole group of us there. There's probably 30 of us, 20 to 30 who did not go, because we all had to put on the Janmashtami program. So anyway, there we were, and there I was overseeing things. And at first, I felt, gosh, what a shame. I would really have liked to have gone to the manor. Oh boy. But then I remembered this very point, that association, that physical association is not as important as Vani and as service to the spiritual master. And when you serve the spiritual master, he's with you. So that idea somehow it just entered my mind very strongly. And I thought, I'd only been a devotee for not even a year. But I knew that point. I'd read that point, and I thought, yeah, right. I must serve Prabhupada by seeing that the Janmashtami is done nicely, the temple runs nicely. I must serve Prabhupada. If I do that, I'll be with him. And so I really, within my heart, I really accepted that point, just like on the spot. And within, I would say, just a couple of minutes, it was subtle, of course, but within a couple of minutes, I felt Prabhupada's with me. He's really with me. And I felt inspired. I felt encouraged. I felt empowered. Because even though it was subtle, it was a feeling, but it was a very strong feeling. And I knew it was true. So, that was even like a turning point in my whole life in Krishna consciousness, actually. And, when Srila Prabhupada did leave this world, some years later, 1977, November the 14th, then, I really got a lot of shelter from that understanding, which I had really, I really caught onto that day in 73, but then I really held on to that idea through all the years up till the time he departed. Yes, so it's an important point. The Vani is more important than the Vapu, although the Vapu should not be underestimated and should be served and addressed while available. But the Vani is so much more available, even when the Vapu is available, and what to speak of after the spiritual master has departed from this world. Then you're living on Vani alone. Yeah, and and remembrances like that, but remembrances are also really a form of Vani. So that's that. Let's go on, devotees, to page 54, which in fact we've already discussed to some degree. And, it really is not a nice subject. But anyway, it's part of the course, so we have to look at it. And, there is importance under certain extraordinary circumstances. So it's lesson 11, and it's, what did I say, page 54, Guru Tyaga, rejection of the spiritual master. In general, the spiritual master is actually the most advanced of all the devotees that you're associating with. So, to reject the spiritual master, this is not just like an ordinary thing like, what shall we have for prasadam? Or something like that. Just some ordinary type of Krishna conscious thing. Rejecting the spiritual master, it's really like super emergency type of situation. But sometimes it happens. Yeah. So let's have a look. We won't go into it too much because we already talked about it a bit, but let's have a look here. Principles and procedures of Guru Tyaga, rejection of the spiritual master. So, first little quote from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 5, from the purport, actually. According to spiritual codes, a teacher who engages in an abominable action and has lost his sense of discrimination is fit to be abandoned. And the next one, well, according to the scriptures, teacher or spiritual master is liable to be rejected if he proves himself unworthy of the position. But actually, you see the next little quote, the verse, Gurur apyavaliptasya karyakardam ajanata upata or utpata pratipanasya parityago vidhiyate. If the guru becomes attached to sense gratification, loses his sense of duty, and follows a degraded path, a path other than devotional service to the Lord, he should be rejected. Now, the good news, the really good news, is that it hardly happens. The bad news is it has happened, and sometimes it does. But like I said, the good news, it's just really extremely rare. And, as it happens, some of you, I think, would be aware that here in South Africa, here in Johannesburg, exactly this happened to someone who was officially a guru in ISKCON, but who is not now, because this happened. He basically fell down from the standard. Became involved with one of his disciples, and he's no longer a guru. So the disciples in such a situation, it depends, because, in his case, he's chanting and reading Prabhupada's books, but he's definitely a devotee to some degree, but not like what he was. So therefore, those who were initiated by him, they are free to be initiated by someone else. Or even it happens in some cases where this sort of things happened, or just take shelter of Srila Prabhupada, assuming that when they were initiated, he was in the proper condition for giving initiation. So, I'm sorry, please don't mind too much, but these things unfortunately happen sometimes. So, the next quote there from a conversation of Prabhupada's in Bhuvaneshwar, more or less bottom of page 54. Prabhupada's, the point he's making is that if you somehow have accepted an unqualified person and been initiated by them, then as soon as you find out that actually, look, this person is not up to the standard of Krishna consciousness and particularly of being a guru. So what to do? Well, Prabhupada says, reject him. That's stated in the Shastra. And Prabhupada quotes that verse which was mentioned just a couple of minutes ago, Gurur apyaviliptasya karya karam ajanata Parityaga, anyway, yeah. Even by mistake, you've come to a rascal who does not know how to be a guru. You can reject him. Why should you stick to him? Reject him. So then what to do? I mean, how to do, you could say. On the next page, 55, there's the procedures for lodging concerns regarding a guru. And you can see the little black box there. You can go to the temple or GBC authorities. You can approach your Siksha Guru or Siksha Gurus, if you have. And you can go to, we have a department or something like that within ISKCON, part of ISKCON, called ISKCON Resolve. And they do mediations, arbitrations. They have an ombuds sort of system, and they can help to help you, at least, shall we say, figure out what to do and sort of point you in the right directions. Yeah. So now this, it's not mentioned here, as far as I've noticed, that if your spiritual master, means particularly your initiating spiritual master, somehow gets into some spiritual difficulty, then it is acceptable, in fact, it's recommended for the disciples not to just reject him just like that, but to approach him and explain to him that they can see what's going on, it's not right, but still we've accepted you as spiritual master. Please correct yourself. That they can do. Appeal to the spiritual master to correct himself or become corrected. And there are cases, in the history, going back hundreds of years, there are cases where a spiritual master somehow, temporarily, was not doing well, but then pulled himself together. So, but otherwise, here we see, there's a couple of quotations here. If you give up the company of the spiritual master, that's not good for you. Prabhupada says, if you do that, there may be some reason. And again, Prabhupada refers to that verse it's from Mahabharata. That if the spiritual master gets into difficulty, shall we just say, and is not acting properly, then he may be given up, but so long you don't find the spiritual master is doing something against the principles, then you can't give up the spiritual master. Sometimes it happens that ISKCON devotees, somehow or other they get into the company of devotees from other organizations like the Gaudiya Math or the Babajis, who have different ideas. I did mention a couple of days, not yesterday, I think the day before, anyway, either the first or the second day, that we stick with Prabhupada because Prabhupada has proven himself so much by making the whole world Krishna conscious, or at least aware of Krishna consciousness. You can hardly find, even in some obscure part of the world, someone who's not heard of Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada is a very unique person. We stick with Prabhupada. But then you get these other groups who are following Lord Caitanya to different degrees. If you remember, I gave the example that I was with a group of devotees. We were visiting Jagannath Puri, 1979. We're just staying in some sort of, not exactly a hotel, but like an ashram. And just up the road was a Gaudiya Math temple. Gaudiya Math means followers of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. So we would go there. We were there for a few days. So we would go for Mangal Arati and so on. But after Mangal Arati, we noticed we sat down to chant our 16 rounds. They didn't, because they had some other teachings that they were following. Yeah. So sometimes some of these people from these other groups, and even the Babajis, who are just another sort of kettle of devotee altogether, they get into a position where they start preaching to some of our younger devotees usually, and confuse them with some ideas which are contrary to the ideas, to the philosophy Srila Prabhupada gave us. So it happens that sometimes some of these ISKCON devotees who have become influenced by maybe Gaudiya Math, maybe Babajis or whoever, they decide, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to follow ISKCON. I'm not going to follow Prabhupada. And they do that. Again, it's not that common, but it definitely happens. It definitely happens. So, but here in this quote at the top of page 55, the point there is, so long you don't find the spiritual master as doing something against the principles, then if you give him up, it's not good for you. So in other words, don't be hasty, even if the spiritual master seems to not be doing the best. But unless there's something really very clear, you shouldn't just give up the spiritual master, as these people will encourage you to do. To give up a bona fide spiritual master in the name of accepting someone else as spiritual master is really not the right thing to do at all. Yeah. So bear that in mind, because every now and then you may, hopefully it'll be very rare, but sometimes you may meet someone who was an ISKCON devotee and you knew them, but somehow they joined another group, they gave up ISKCON, they gave up Prabhupada, and maybe they gave up their initiating spiritual master and accepted someone from the other group. But this is very bad. So Prabhupada says, so long you do not find the spiritual master is doing something against the principles of Shastra or Guru, then if you give up the company of the spiritual master, that is not good for you. That is your downfall. And the next one is very interesting. It's from Chaitanya Bhagavat. Gadadhar Pandit was a disciple of Pundarik Vijayanidhi, and when he was initiated, he was given a particular mantra, and it's referred to here, you see, in the second line of the text there. He says, He's speaking to Lord Caitanya. He says, I have revealed my Ishta mantra that I received from my Guru to an undeserving person. And since then, my mind is disturbed. So, So what to do? So for some reason, Pundarik Vijayanidhi was not generally living in Mayapur or Puri. He was living in some other part of Bengal. So Gadadhar couldn't approach. He felt, I've given the mantra to someone who was undeserving. I should receive the mantra again. I should be initiated again with the same Ishta mantra. And he's asking Lord Caitanya, you please do that. But the Lord said, be very careful that you don't commit any offenses to your Guru, the one who instructed you on the Ishta mantra. As long as your mantra Guru is present, you cannot go elsewhere or even come to me, Lord Caitanya. This would jeopardize the spiritual life of both you and me. Anyway, I hope you got that point, that sometimes devotees get mixed up with devotees from other groups. And of course, ISKCON is much bigger than the other groups. But the other groups, they've sort of got inferiority complexes, and they want to show we're as good as ISKCON, or even we're better than ISKCON. So they try to convince you to join them and leave ISKCON and leave Prabhupada and leave your Guru. And they may even say, well, your Guru doesn't talk about Radha Krishna Leela enough. I mean, that's a very common complaint. Yeah. He talks about chanting Hare Krishna, avoiding offenses, but not about the rasa dance enough. So you should join us because our Guru talks about, he only talks about the rasa dance. So some devotees get influenced and they give up their Guru and Prabhupada and ISKCON and join the other group and get reinitiated. But here Lord Caitanya says, you cannot go elsewhere. You cannot even come to me, to Lord Caitanya. Yeah. So then the next one, the third one there, from Brahma Vaivarta Purana, it's a really good one. One pollutes his own intelligence and exhibits severe weakness of character when he rejects his own spiritual master. Indeed, such a person has already rejected the Supreme Lord, Hari. Now, of course, we read those different quotes about how if the Guru gets deviated badly, he can be or even should be rejected, and another Guru accepted. But in this case, the idea is that your existing Guru is basically fine. He's doing as usual, doing nicely, chanting his rounds, following the principles, preaching, doing service, etc. So even if someone thinks that another Guru may know more, so to be nice to accept him. But if you reject your existing Guru, that's big aparad, big offense. And as Brahma Vaivarta Purana says, such a person has already rejected the Supreme Lord, Hari. So anyway, on to the next page, 56? Up the top there, reinitiation. If in the rare case, very rare, although it happens, that the person who you're initiated by gets into serious difficulty and you need to move on past him, then as the quotation says here, after consulting with senior ISKCON devotees, authorities, if it's clear and everyone agrees, best to reject the non-bona fide guru, then you can seek initiation from an approved ISKCON guru. I mean, you not just accept it, seek initiation just like that. You have to again develop a relationship and feel that, yes, this person is my guru, and I want to accept this person as my guru. And then that can be done, and it is done sometimes. Right ho. All right, so sorry about that. Oops, what am I doing? Are you okay? Have you survived that? I haven't shocked you too much, have I? I'm really sorry if I have. Yeah, I'm really sorry. It's such a horrible subject, but we are in the material world, and sometimes horrible things happen, even amongst the devotees. So now, devotees, we're going on to page 57. I think it's just the next page, isn't it? Yeah. And 57, Unit 4, cooperatively fulfilling the relationship between you and the Guru, and you and Prabhupada, and you and other devotees, and you and other gurus in ISKCON. These are some subtleties, but they're important. So there you see, there's these 3 lessons, 12, 13, and 14, page 57. Now, lesson 12, presenting one's guru, presenting Prabhupada, presenting other ISKCON gurus, not your ISKCON, your guru. And then 13, relationships within ISKCON, discriminating against other devotees on the basis of who is their guru as opposed to who is your guru. And then cooperation, developing cooperative relationships. And then at the end, some sort of little conclusion or roundup. So, okay, let's go on to, 58, presenting one's guru. And in the little box towards the top, there are 2 parts, presenting Prabhupada and presenting current ISKCON gurus. Now, the first little couple of things there, sort of some exercises. But let's go on to the next page where there's information. So, presenting one's guru. So first little point there is, instruct the new members, the new devotees, to take shelter of Prabhupada. We already talked about that, day before yesterday? Everyone should take shelter of Prabhupada when they first start practicing, and they shouldn't worry. They shouldn't really think about who will I be initiated by for a while. Like 6 months, a year. Just get into Krishna consciousness. Take shelter of Prabhupada and really appreciate Prabhupada, develop a relationship with him. So, okay, now, in terms of Prabhupada, we see here that there is the little quote from ISKCON law, use of title. and this is in regards to Srila Prabhupada, the law is all of our books, magazines, newsletters, leaflets, flyers, invitations, etc. And the next one is the buildings of ISKCON should clearly display Prabhupada's full name and full title. Yeah. So it should be there. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. On all the books, the magazines, if you're doing a festival and you print some just, little flyers, just little handout leaflets, or you make some posters to advertise the festival, then whatever it is, it must have, not should. The word is not should. The word is must have exactly this, that His Divine Grace, well, it can be sort of it can be like this: International Society for Krishna Consciousness on one line. On the next line, founder Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. If it's like a book, and now Prabhupada's the author, then you would put where the author's name is, normally down in the lower part of the cover, it should say, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And then I mentioned also the next one, the plaques on the buildings. ISKCON, all ISKCON temples and prominent buildings should install plaques with Prabhupada's full name and his position as founder Acharya. And this includes buildings of the BBT, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, Bhaktivedanta Institute, etc., etc. Any other group founded by Prabhupada or affiliated to ISKCON. Like there is an affiliated group called ISKCON Cow Protection. It's not called International Society for Krishna. It's called ISKCON, actually. ISKCON Cow Protection. It's not Bhaktivedanta Cow Protection or something like that. It's an affiliated organization. And so it's called ISKCON Cow Protection, and underneath, founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So now we're moving on. Those two are regarding Prabhupada. Now we're moving on to situations involving your spiritual master and not exactly Prabhupada. And there's a little quote here. It's an interesting little thing. One should hide one's Ishtadeva, hide one's guru, hide one's mantra, and hide one's japamala. To be quite honest, it's not completely applicable to us. It's Hari Bhakti Vilas, which is not always entirely applicable to us. So our Ishtadeva basically is Radha Krishna. Ishtadeva means like our personal deity. Generally it would be Radha Krishna, maybe Lord Caitanya, Lord Nityananda, Gaur Nitai. So we don't want to hide them. We want to tell people about them. But one should hide one's guru. There's room for applying that. We shouldn't just tell the world about our guru and he's the best, even though we may feel, generally we would feel he is the best, but we don't want to be sort of too much in people's faces without our own guru. If we're talking about the public, we should present Prabhupada. If we're talking about within the community of devotees, then we should not sort of try to force our guru on any other devotees. Obviously it would not be nice to try and force our guru onto another devotee who is already initiated by a different guru. That would just be, really stupid, to say the least. But when it comes to new devotees, we should also not try to kind of force our guru on them. We call that canvassing, and it is illegal in ISKCON to try and promote your guru to new people, to get the new people to influence the new people to accept your guru as their guru. Then one should hide one's mantra. Well, not exactly. If you're talking about Gayatri mantras, which you get at second initiation, then yes. Don't tell others about your Gayatri mantras. But when it comes to the Hare Krishna mantra, we try and distribute it and give it and propagate it as much as we can. Yeah. And one should hide one's japamala. I was just reading, not yesterday, maybe the day before yesterday, it was from Satswarup Maharaj. Anyway, it was a few days ago, actually, maybe when I was in Cape Town, so it was maybe a week ago even. Satswarup Maharaj has made some compilations of different incidents, different pastimes, you could say, of Srila Prabhupada. And I was looking through that, and I found a little section, like a few quotations from Prabhupada about, in which Prabhupada caught a devotee, or different devotees in each situation, who had their japa beads around their necks and not in their bead bags. You get the idea. So, in all these, I forget how many, but I think there was 3 or 4 little incidents which occurred and were recorded there. In each case, Prabhupada asked the devotee whose japa beads are hanging around his neck and they're not in his bead bag. And Prabhupada asks, "Where's your bead bag?" And tells the devotee, "You should put your beads in your bead bag." So yeah, it's not maybe as much hiding as just keeping them clean, keeping them together, avoiding having them sort of fall off on the ground or something like that. So with our japa beads, we should put them in our bead bags and keep them in our bead bags. Yeah, which is equivalent, you could say, to hiding your bead bag. The next one is a bit of a classic. It doesn't really happen much now. It used to happen a bit. That disciples of ISKCON Diksha and Siksha Gurus should not wear or publicly display guru t-shirts, posters, bead bag buttons, athletic caps, etc., other than Srila Prabhupada. I know one guru who I know very well. He's just such a wonderful devotee, telling me that one of his disciples printed a few T-shirts with his face on the front. And he said he didn't know about it. He was walking around somewhere, and one of his disciples came up with this T-shirt with his big face. And it was like, whoa, what on earth is this? So we don't do that. We can make T-shirts with Prabhupada, but not our own spiritual master or bead bag buttons. I haven't seen athletic caps, but anyway, that's the idea. So next one, that devotees living in temples can keep photos of their guru or gurus privately in their ashram quarters, but not display them publicly, like in the temple room, for example. However, if your guru is doing a special preaching program, maybe a hall program, for example, and the program should be advertised to attract people to come, then it's possible to have maybe a photo of the spiritual master, mention of the name of the spiritual master like that. Then another one at the bottom of 59, all ISKCON websites should prominently feature a picture of Prabhupada on the introductory page, should be larger than anyone else's photo on the page. And it should have Prabhupada's name properly as is there at the bottom. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Okay, lesson 13, relationships within ISKCON. There are two sections. Discrimination, on the basis of guru, and developing cooperative relationships. So discrimination, let's see. Well, there's quotes here one quote from the Oxford Dictionary, another from like a university textbook, it looks like. Discrimination, what is it? The perceiving, noting, or making a distinction or difference between things. And then the sociology book. Discrimination is the prejudicial treatment of an individual based solely on their membership in a certain group or category. It involves excluding or restricting members of one group from opportunities that are available to other groups, or like excluding or restricting members of different groups from opportunities that are available to a particular other group. Let me give you an example. When I first went to Riga in Latvia, when I first went to Riga, it was 1983. Then I went back in 1984. I used to go. In fact, I am going in a couple of months. But most of the devotees living in the temple were disciples of a particular ISKCON guru, who's another very good friend of mine, just a great devotee. He was the GBC, actually I don't know if he was the GBC, but somehow or other, more than half of the devotees living in the temple were his disciples. And amongst the men, it was, 75% of the men were his disciples. Not a lot, like 15 or 12 or something. And they had like a clubhouse. Up in the Brahmachari ashram, there was one room. On the door was a sign, entrance only for disciples of the name of the Guru. Oh, Krishna. So this is not, we don't do this. No, it's natural and it's good for devotees who are disciples of the same Guru to associate together, and like even in some cases the group may meet once a month or once every 2 or 3 months every now and then. This is not I mean, it's not that common, but it's not that unusual. It definitely happens that there's like a monthly or however often meeting of the disciples of such and such, where there's a special program focusing on that person who is the Guru of all the devotees who are gathered. Right, so that's there. But otherwise, well, there's at the bottom of page 60, you see there's a little exercise. Maybe you're going to do it, I'm not exactly sure. But list some of the possible long-term consequences for ISKCON arising from inappropriate favoritism or bias on the basis of Guru. Yeah. Like in some cases, what happens actually, again, it's not often, but it happens, is that the authorities in a particular temple are disciples of one particular Guru. And devotees who want to be initiated, it's easier because the temple president, the temple authorities have to give their recommendation for everyone, anyone to be initiated. But suddenly you notice that it's easier for devotees who want to be initiated by the Guru of the president and maybe some of the other yatra leaders. It's easier to get the recommendation from them for being initiated by their Guru. So this is inappropriate favoritism or bias on the basis of Guru. Okay. All right. So over to the next, page 61. And we're almost there, devotees. How's that? We're within inches of basically completing our seminar. So let's see. I mean, well, let's just read the quotation, which is beneath the little box there. It's the one with the heading, "I'm so pleased with your mutual friendship that I wish you all good fortune." So this is the verse, Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, Chapter 30, verse 8. And it's the Supreme Personality of Godhead speaking to the sons of King Prachanabarhishat. So he says, the Lord said, "My dear sons of the king, I am very much pleased by the friendly relationships among you. All of you are engaged in one occupation, devotional service. I'm so pleased with your mutual friendship that I wish you all good fortune. Now you may ask a benediction of me." So the thing is this, devotees, like we said, sort of more or less in the beginning, thereabouts, in ISKCON, there are something like 100 gurus, initiating gurus. plus or minus. And so ISKCON is a multi-guru society. Now, of course, it's very unusual, or I'd say it's unheard of, that you'll find a yatra, like a big temple, even like Mayapur, the biggest temple, or maybe in America, Alachua, it's the biggest one in the States, or outside of India, I think. You're not going to find devotees who are disciples of the 100 gurus. All of them. You're going to find in the bigger temples that there's certain gurus, probably the more local ones, who are more prominent, but not all 100 are going to have disciples even in the biggest temple that there is. So, but what is really nice, and not just nice, but proper, what is really the right thing, it's a good thing, and it's a very blissful thing, is that, as you're associating with the different devotees and doing service with devotees who are disciples of other gurus, which, is inevitable. I mean, even here in Santon, we have a small, it's not a big congregation. I mean, it's a very nice congregation. I don't know, maybe it's 100 or a couple of hundred. Well, yeah, probably a couple of hundred devotees. And I don't know, I haven't counted how many initiating gurus have disciples here. But I would imagine maybe it's 10, I'd say probably 6 to 10 here in Santon. And so you get to know everyone. And this devotee is initiated by this guru. Another devotee who you are associating with sometimes is initiated by another guru, and like that. So what's really nice, and it's the right thing, is to encourage them in their relationships with their respective gurus. Yeah. I mean, that's really the right thing to do. And express appreciation for their guru, of each one. Yeah. I mean, this is really the right thing. And this is, it's a point which can be applied in relation to this quote we just read from the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam. Yeah, that mutual friendship and appreciation. And even though it's only natural that disciples of a particular guru will sort of gravitate towards each other, but not that you get like a real clique. We are not into cliques. We're really not. I mean, having the disciples, having association, having a meeting from time to time, that's only natural. Birds of a feather flock together, but not like a real in-group. Like I mentioned about the situation there in Riga, in Latvia, that devotees who were not disciples of that particular guru, they were not allowed to enter the room. I mean, that's a real clique. Anyway, the clique fell to pieces as time went on. They were all brahmacharis. Take a wild guess what happened. I think to all of them, they became householders and then, went here and there. And yeah, so the clique just sort of dissolved. All right, that's that point. And then actually, is it? Oh, it's the second to last point. And this is a famous, very famous quotation from Prabhupada. You know, it's almost like his famous last words. I don't think it is exactly his famous last words, but amongst his last, you know, the last words he spoke during the last days, this is the most prominent and most famous. Your love for me will be shown by how much you cooperate to keep this institution together after I am gone. I imagine you've all heard this before. It's just extremely famous. And then looks like the actual last quotation. I mean, there may be a little more further on, but let's just look at this. United we stand, divided we fall. You know, of course, that's a famous saying. So this is Prabhupada, room conversation, 1976 in Mayapur. Caitanya Mahaprabhu himself wanted our cooperation. He is God, Krishna, and therefore cooperation is a very important thing. Nobody should think that I've got so great ability, I can do whatever. No, it is simply by cooperation we can do very big things. United we stand, divided we fall. This is our, so be strong in pushing on Krishna consciousness and Krishna will help. He is the strongest. Still, we must be combined together. And actually, Prabhupada gave the example of a bundle of sticks. Bundle of sticks. If you have a bundle of sticks, like a whole handful, then you can't break the whole bundle of sticks. No ordinary human being can do that at all. But if you separate the sticks and just try and break them one by one, it may be very easy. Even a child might be able to break them one by one. So yeah, that's the example of the bundle of sticks and Prabhupada. I mean, it's an already existing example, idea, but Prabhupada utilized it. So let's go over to page 62, but then on to 63. And I'm not going to go through all of it, I don't think, am I? Should it? Well, yeah, maybe we should just go through it. First of all, let's have a look at the additional quotes. Let's have a look. Well. So from the first lesson, we have only to execute the order of the spiritual master. Well, that, you know, I think I sort of beat you over the heads with that sufficiently. And training must be a training college, yeah. Should be, not just sort of ad hoc, just, you know, in passing training, but systematic training should be there. Then lesson 5, Guru Padashraya, taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Guru. Interesting quote there, the first one, very famous. You'll find it, Prabhupada repeats it on quite a number of occasions. Unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master, all the imports of Vedic knowledge are automatically revealed because Krishna sees if you have faith in him and in the spiritual master, Krishna sees and Krishna feels good. This is one of my people, and he'll give you mercy. He'll give you realization, revelation. So service should be offered to the spiritual master with heart and soul. as a menial servant, dedicate everything to the spiritual master and to the Lord via the spiritual master. And then the next quote is basically the same idea. Yeah, that's 64. Then initiation vows. Let's have a look here. Yeah, well, you know, I did mention just now, just 15 or 20 minutes ago, that, you know, there are other groups. ISKCON is not the only group of people, of Vaishnavas. There are others. And prominent amongst the others are particularly two. That's the Gaudiya Math, which is generally godbrothers of Srila Prabhupada, or now there's not, I don't think there's any of them. If there are any at all, they're like really like around 100 years old. Now, if Prabhupada was still physically present, he'd be 127. So I don't know if there are any. I suspect there's none, unless there are people who are initiated as children. But you get these other groups, and they try to compete with ISKCON because ISKCON, I mean, let's face it, ISKCON is far bigger than these other groups. You know, we have more. We don't even know how many temples we have, but we know it's well over 1,000. It's well over, maybe 1,500 or something. So, you know, these people, they try to compete and they don't like to be sort of overshadowed. So if you happen to meet them, they may try to influence you that actually they're better than ISKCON, and their head is better than Prabhupada, and their guru is better than your ISKCON guru. I mean, seriously, this happens. It really happens. It's not that common, but it happens. And it's just stupid and wrong. So, we shouldn't be influenced by them and give up our spiritual master, because, as Prabhupada says, that when you sat at the fire sacrifice, this is, what is it, the top of 65, top of 65, you should understand that when you sat at the fire sacrifice, when you were initiated, you made a vow. And you should not break these vows. Yes. So, therefore, we should not get deviated from ISKCON and from our bona fide ISKCON spiritual masters. Don't break these vows. Yeah. So, okay. Anyway, let's carry on. I mean, this is a tug of war, okay. Maya's strong, but we have to keep sheltered at the lotus feet of the spiritual master, engaged in his service. Then lesson 12, presenting one's guru. Now, this is interesting. This is Srila Prabhupada. Just like we are not instructing our disciples to chant my name, Bhaktivedanta Swami, Bhaktivedanta Swami. No, they're chanting Hare Krishna. Hare Tvena Samasta Shastraya Ukta. That's the part of the 7th verse of Gavastikam. Guru is respected as good as Krishna. Okay, but that does not mean I shall teach them to go and chant my name. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Bhaktivedanta Swami, Bhaktivedanta Swami. What is this? We are teaching chant Hare Krishna. Harir Nam, Harir Nam. So, it's an interesting point about ISKCON. Even though ISKCON's all over, it's really just all over the world, pretty much. But, and so people know, Hare Krishna, we know about Hare Krishna. They may like it, they may not like it, but they know about Hare Krishna. But Prabhupada, unless they've sort of looked into it and got some books, really looked into it, they won't have heard of Prabhupada. Because Prabhupada never pushed himself forward. He always kept in the background and kept Krishna in the front. Okay. Then something from Jagadananda Pandit. It is not enough to repeatedly advertise that one is a devotee of Mahaprabhu by saying, I am Gaura's, I am Gaura's. Rather, those who follow the practices taught by Mahaprabhu are understood to get the results of being the Lord's follower. So don't advertise yourself, follow the instructions, follow the practices, then you'll get the results, you'll get the mercy. All right, then let's see, lesson 14, the course roundup. Oh, okay, it's just the one statement there at the bottom of page 65. One must be serious to understand, and he must approach a qualified Mahatma Guru. Then his business will be, transaction will be very nicely done. This is Vedic process. If the transaction is perfect from both sides, from the disciple's side and Guru's side, then Krishna consciousness is very, very easy. Well, that's really nice. I really like that one. Prabhupada once said, Krishna consciousness is so easy, you may miss it. Just so easy. You may not notice it. So now, here, look, there's a whole lot of appendixes. You probably remember at the beginning, more or less, we read Appendix 10, which was what? It was the norms for this seminar. But here's another one, Appendix 2, the GBC statement on the position of Srila Prabhupada. Wow, it's a big one. It's really, it's a resolution from the GBC body. Okay, well, okay, let me go through it. So, whereas there's a need to clarify within our society, via a succinct statement, Srila Prabhupada's preeminent position in relationship to Diksha and Siksha gurus, as well as all ISKCON members, and to provide clarity on the function and position of Diksha and Siksha gurus in the ISKCON society. So, all right, let's have a look here. That the GBC endorses the following statement. As the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON, and the preeminent teacher and ultimate authority within our society, Srila Prabhupada has a unique relationship with every ISKCON devotee. Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the original Guru whose divine grace descends through the medium of the Guru Parampara. As such, a devotee is ultimately delivered by Sri Krishna, acting through a combination of various manifestations of his mercy. These include, but are not limited to, the Chaitya Guru, Srila Prabhupada, the Guru Parampara, one's Diksha Guru, other Siksha Gurus, the holy name, Shastra, and the 9 processes of devotional service. Within these cooperative elements, Srila Prabhupada, as founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, is the preeminent Siksha Guru for all members of ISKCON. All members of ISKCON for all generations, means into the future also, are encouraged to seek shelter of Srila Prabhupada. All members of ISKCON are entitled and encouraged to have a personal relationship with Srila Prabhupada through his books, teachings, service, and his ISKCON society. All members accepting leadership roles within ISKCON, including Diksha Gurus and Siksha Gurus, have the duty of serving together under ISKCON's governing body commission, GBC, to fulfill Srila Prabhupada's instructions as he has given in his books, lectures, and personal communications. Overall, the primary duty of all Diksha Gurus, Siksha Gurus, and others in leadership positions is to assist Srila Prabhupada in his service to his Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and our Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Those who accept the service of Diksha Guru or Siksha Guru in ISKCON are required to be exemplary in representing Srila Prabhupada's teachings in their words and personal behavior. The Siksha Guru gives spiritual instruction and inspiration on behalf of Srila Prabhupada and our Guru Parampara. The Diksha Guru gives spiritual instruction, inspiration, formal initiation, a spiritual name, and later imparts the sacred Gayatri mantras to a qualified disciple as a service to Srila Prabhupada and our Guru Parampara. Srila Prabhupada has clearly explained that devotees who are strictly following the Krishna conscious principles are acting on the liberated platform and as such are pure devotees, even though they may actually not yet be liberated. Such unalloyed devotional service is not necessarily determined by one's role or position of service, but by one's realization. Those who accept the service of Diksha or Siksha Guru within ISKCON are mandated to be strict followers of the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, and as long as they follow, they're acting on the liberated platform. Thus, they may serve, as Srila Prabhupada ordered, as bona fide representatives of the Lord and the Guru Parampara, and be a via medium of their mercy. Yet it should be clearly understood that if such Diksha or Siksha Gurus deviate from strictly following, they may fall down from their position. Thus, to act as a Diksha Guru in ISKCON means to serve under the GBC and in cooperation with other ISKCON authorities by functioning as a regular guru, as Srila Prabhupada has directed. This statement, while conclusive, is not exhaustive in its discussion of these principles. The GBC may authorize additional statements and papers in the future to further explain the preeminent position of our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada, the role and responsibilities of those who serve as gurus in our society, and the related duties of ISKCON members and initiates. And then the next thing is, it says resolved, but it's just saying that this must be distributed, what I had just read. This resolution must be distributed to all temples, congregations, etc., must be studied in different ISKCON courses about guru-type matters, etc. Okay, devotees. Now, you know what I'm going to do? with our organizers' permission or approval, is take the questions. Is that okay?
Hare Krishna, Shri Gurudev. Sorry if we've had a power cut in our area, so hopefully everybody can hear me clearly. It's not load shedding. But yes, happy for you to proceed with the questions. Those who emailed last night, you have them. And then those who did put their questions in the chat, my apologies, because when I got disconnected, it was lost. So please don't feel shy. Please raise your hand and ask Maharaj. Otherwise, you can just send it to me quickly now.
Okay, they could do that. But, I must have them. Yeah, anyway, see if you get them.
Right.
But let's, for the time being, I'll go back to the questions. Yeah, here they are. That was sent to you, this morning. Okay, so here we got 6 actually, 6 questions. Number 1, devotees are using time, place, and circumstances as excuses to get out of a lot of rules and practice. How does Krishna Prabhupada accept time, place, and circumstances? And if in the mind of a devotee they use this to make themselves feel better, what is the repercussion? And if it's accepted or not by Prabhupada or Krishna? Yeah, well, time, place, circumstance, or whatever. Devotees who are not really so committed or haven't practiced for so long or don't have so much realization, they may make excuses like eating onions and garlic, for example, maybe not chanting 16 rounds in a day, and, if a devotee, the thing is this, if a devotee, this is maybe a very slightly different point, but I think it's sort of basically the same point, is that sometimes a devotee accidentally does something they shouldn't do. That can happen. Not as an excuse, but just by accident. They may find that they have eaten something which had onions in it. It's not likely, but it happened. It has happened. It's definitely happened. Yeah. So it's a mistake. They didn't even know. They didn't do it intentionally. Here's another one. Back in the hippie days in San Francisco, the devotees once took part in a hippie festival. And, the hippies were so much into drugs. It was just living on daca, marijuana and LSD and these things. So one time the devotees were at a festival, a hippie festival, and they were serving prasad. And part of the prasad was an orange drink, just some cordial you buy in a supermarket mixed with water, and there you go, it's something to drink, with a bit of an orange taste or something along those lines. But some of the hippies put LSD into the drink. And so the devotees were distributing it, but they were drinking it. Yeah, all the devotees were drinking this LSD spiked drink. And, many of them, maybe even, frankly, all of them actually, were from that sort of background. And so therefore, after a little while, they noticed, hey, I feel I know what this feeling is. And they understood, yeah, somehow or other, we have taken LSD. So that sort of, when it's really accidental, that will be forgiven. That will be forgiven. Yeah. Now, if something is done deliberately, then there'll be some reaction. What reaction will depend on Krishna and how he sees you and what he thinks would be suitable to sort of wake you up and stop making excuses. Like, I'll give you an example of something like this, something deliberate. and anyway, I'll explain it. Sometimes devotees get really busy, and by the end of the day, they are really tired, and they haven't finished their rounds. And what to do, and they're exhausted. If they're going to stay up and chant another 10 rounds or 6 rounds or something, it's going to be really difficult. So Prabhupada authorized, in such a situation, you could make up for those rounds the next day. Chant extra 6 or whatever it is the next day. So that then it's not an excuse. It's just, it's time, place, and circumstance, but not as an excuse. So therefore, that will also be accepted by Krishna and Prabhupada. But if you're just sort of cheating, there's a saying, drinking water underwater on a fast day. You're meant to be fasting, including not drinking anything. But then you go to take a bath in the river, and while you're taking a bath, you submerge yourself, and of course nobody can see, and you drink some water. So if you do something like that, whatever it may be, then it's very likely that you'll get a reaction by Krishna's arrangement. And what reaction, that's up to Krishna. Yeah. So, if you fall down when initiated, okay, can't complete your rounds due to material challenges. Well, I just talked about that, didn't I? It's not a fall down. A fall down is something different. A fall down is actually breaking, particularly one of the 4 regulative principles. Deliberately taking some intoxication, deliberately eating some meat, fish, or something, or even just drinking some tea or coffee, deliberately eating some onions or garlic. That's fall down. So, anyway, this example is not exactly a fall down, as long as you catch up with your rounds. So what prayer or mantra can you say to help get back up to 16 rounds? Well, I would say the right mantra would be Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. As many times as you need to catch up with your 16 rounds, which, whatever you missed out the other day. So last year you debated with a Christian non-devotee. They said awful things about Lord Nrsingadev. Yeah, well, you see, there are the 10 offenses in chanting the holy names. The 9th one is to preach the glories of the Lord to people who are faithless. What you did was a version of that. And as soon as they said the first word You should have just gone and just forgot about having any interaction with them whatsoever. Because even though you think that Lord Nrsingadev's great, he's wonderful, you love Lord Nrsingadev, but when you hear blasphemy, it's like poison. If you drink poison, obviously, or you eat something, like you get food poisoning, you get sick, and you can die, or you can certainly get very, very sick. So, in this case, the sickness means that your attachment to the Lord has been sort of contaminated, undercut, and reduced. Yeah. So what you should do is, if I would suggest, get together with some devotees and, like on a weekend, chant 64 rounds. Really get into chanting in the company of devotees. And it's a different situation, but if you have a job which, just takes up too much time, and you just cannot chant your rounds nicely, and it becomes clear that that's what this job is about, then you know what you should do? You should get another job. Yeah. Okay. Devotee association is vital. However, what if you find that a senior devotee authority has a lot of ego, pride, bad attitude, always thinking they're superior, and has no respect towards you? How do you protect your consciousness? Well, in a sense, it's good. In a sense, just in a sense. And it may sound like a bit of a joke, but it's not really a joke. That if there's someone who is making you feel small, putting you down, that's good for your false ego. Because we are so prone to think that we're better than what we are. It's just like automatic reaction. As soon as the opportunity comes for us to feel some pride, there we go. We've got it. So, in a certain sense, to be criticized may be good for you. To a point. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, he who flatters me is my enemy. He who criticizes me is my friend. But anyway, if you find that it's too much for you to deal with, then I would say, avoid the person. Not just I would say, but the right thing to do would be to avoid the person. Yeah. Yeah. And if they sort of pursue you, you're trying to avoid them, but they pursue you, then you will have to take it up with higher authority. Yeah. If you can do it anonymously, that's good. ISKCON is not so big, it may be difficult. And you may be victimized a bit, but that's the chance you'll have to take. Yeah. Okay, number 4. I understand that we're servants of Krishna. However, being a kind, humble, obedient person in Kali Yuga is really hard, as devotees take a lot of advantage of it, and then you become a doormat to them. They speak to you harshly, etc. How can you stay humble and ask a devotee to stay within their limits without committing any offense to a Brahmin. Yeah, well, it may be good to be a doormat, because then you'll get the dust of their lotus feet. It's the same point that I was making a couple of minutes or so ago. Yeah. But having said that, being humble does not simply mean just being like a yes man. Yeah. And just, you don't say anything, whatever happens. Even if it's really bad, you don't say anything. Then you're humble. Amongst the certain groups of Babajis, who, they're sort of followers, they will definitely say they're followers of Lord Caitanya. But amongst certain of them, not many, but some, they have the idea that whatever you are offered, whatever someone wants to give you, it's coming from the Lord. It's the Lord's arrangement. You must accept it. Otherwise, you're not being humble. If you don't accept it, you're not being humble. So therefore, they apply that if someone comes to you and, because a lot of these people live in Bengal, and in Bengal, eating fish is extremely common. So therefore, they feel if someone comes to you and offers you some fish, you must accept it and eat it. Otherwise, you're not humble. This is not correct. This is stupid, actually. So therefore, in a sincere way and without trying to be abusive, if someone goes outside of proper limits, then you should, in a nice way, but a strong way, you should say, "My dear Prabhu, I'm sorry, but this is not right." If they speak to you harshly, you should say, "My dear Prabhu, please don't speak to me like that. I'm trying to be a devotee. Please try to encourage me." Like this, then you're not committing an offense, but you're not going outside the boundaries of humility and proper devotee behavior. How do I protect my Krishna consciousness from devotees that are hypocrites and address you as a mental person? Wow. For following too rigidly the practices. Well, if someone says that you're a fanatic because, you do something, whatever it is, I don't know, but you do something, you're just too blind faith about it. I would suggest, unless it's obvious that it's not true, I would suggest that you check with other devotees or your mentor. I hope you have a mentor. Check with your mentor that, look, this person said this about, I'm doing such and such. Am I being too rigid? And if your mentor says, no, you're not, then the next time the person says it, tell them that, I took it up with my mentor who's more senior than you, and this is what they've told me. So please, you can even say, please keep your opinions to yourself. And if your mentor says, well, actually, it's a fact, you're being a bit fanatical, then you can adjust your behavior. So, okay, last one on this list. What if you're being peer pressured by initiated devotees to get initiation so you can help with some service at the temple? How can I respectfully tell them I'm not ready yet? you've answered your question, frankly. You can just respectfully tell them that you're not ready yet. And thank you very much for the encouragement. It's extremely nice of you. I know you're just trying to help me and inspire me, but I need a little space to mature a bit more in my Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So that's what I'd suggest. And if they continue doing that, tell your mentor and ask your mentor to take it up with them. And your mentor can tell them that, listen, I am dealing with this devotee. I am the mentor. I know who this devotee is. They need a little more time, so please, just take it easy. Okay, so are there more? There are more, right?
Correct, Srila Gurudev. There's 7 questions. I can read them out. Hopefully the reception is good on my end.
It's fine
so the
here.
The first question is, Hare Krishna Maharaj, you have spoken about the Gayatri Mantra. I was born in a Hindu family and we have always recited the Gayatri Mantra. Unfortunately, at that time, I did not know that we were not qualified to chant it. I would like to know if it is the same Gayatri Mantra which devotees who take second initiation chant.
Okay.
I have tried asking certain senior devotees, but it seems like most of them were not comfortable discussing this, since this is meant to be confidential between the devotee and the guru. Can you please help me understand what exactly is the Gayatri Mantra within ISKCON?
Okay. In ISKCON, except for sannyasis, but those who are not sannyasis but have second initiation, there are 7 Gayatri mantras. And when you get second initiation, you will be given all 7 of these Gayatri mantras. So, now the Gayatri mantra, which is the popular Hindu Gayatri mantra, I mean, it's a Gayatri mantra. It's one of the Gayatri mantras. It begins, I can tell you the first few words, and there's nothing wrong with that. If I tell you the whole mantra, then effectively I've initiated you into that mantra. But the popular Gayatri mantra, which is chanted by I don't know how many millions of Hindu people, it begins Om, Bhur, Bhuva, Swa. Now, I assume, I don't know who you are actually, but if you're here, you can make yourself known.
It's me, Gurudev. It's Lakshmi.
Lakshmi, Haribol Lakshmi.
Haribol, right.
Is that the Gayatri we're talking about?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Of course, yeah, because I think it's the only one they know. So anyway, but we do 7. We chant 7. I mean, and sannyasis chant 8. Yeah. So it's a Rig Veda mantra, actually. It's a Rig Veda mantra, and it's a very fundamental Vedic mantra. It is not meant to be chanted by those who are not qualified Brahmins. And, your average, at least shall we say, in general Hindu society, do you live in Mauritius?
I am from Mauritius, but I live in Cape Town.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Oh, yeah, right, of course. Yeah. Anyway, in Mauritius and in Cape Town, other than the ISKCON devotees, there's a great shortage of really qualified Brahmins, frankly, with respect. And, we don't want to sort of appear to be getting aggressive or proud or something. So, if you were in that category, that you received the mantra at some time, as a child, maybe from your family guru or one way or another. But now you're a serious ISKCON devotee, and I take it you want to get first initiate, or you want to become initiated in ISKCON. Great, go for it. Fantastic. You should just stop chanting that mantra.
I've stopped.
Okay, good.
Under the advice of my aspiring guru.
Okay, right. Yeah, so that's the right thing to do, and in due course, you'll receive that mantra again, actually, but properly, plus the others, up to the 7. Is that okay?
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Yes, that's definitely okay.
Okay. All right, fine. What's the next one?
Next one is, can a spiritual master reject a disciple?
Yes. Particularly if the disciple becomes offensive, like blasphemous, towards Krishna consciousness, towards Krishna, towards Prabhupada, towards the spiritual master, towards the other devotees. The spiritual master should try to correct the devotee. But if they're really, if they've really sort of gone off the deep end in terms of negativity of mind and like aggressive negativity, then the spiritual master should reject the disciple, or must actually reject the disciple. But, if the disciple, just through weakness, breaks one or some of the regulative principles, which, life being what it is, sometimes it happens to some. Definitely not to everyone, but sometimes to some. Then generally, the spiritual master will not reject the disciple, even if the disciple has developed a habit, like a smoking habit. Believe it or not, sometimes an initiated devotee develops a smoking habit or some other whatever habit against the regulative principles. Then the spiritual master will not reject the disciple generally, only if the disciple becomes offensive also. All right.
Okay. The next question is,
let me just, sorry. Let me just repeat one thing. It jumped into my mind. Prabhupada once, his practice was he would be massaged, and while being massaged, the secretary would read the mail to him, and he would sometimes then just speak answers. So Prabhupada, one time, he's being massaged, the secretary's reading the mail, and one letter from a disciple says, Prabhupada, I'm having great difficulty. I'm having very great difficulty. I'm trying to be a devotee, but sometimes I become overwhelmed. I smoke a cigarette. And then maybe for a couple of weeks I smoke, but then I stop. And then for some weeks, I'm not smoking, I'm carrying on in Krishna consciousness. But then somehow something goes wrong, and I smoke again. And again for a while I'm smoking. And then I stop. So this is what the letter said. And the one devotee who told us, me and another devotee, the story, was personally there. He was personally there. And he's sitting there hearing this, the smoking and all that. And he's thinking, what sort of devotee is this? This is not a devotee. Smoking, this is simply nonsense. Then the reading of the letter finished, And Prabhupada became very thoughtful. And Prabhupada said, "What a great soul. He's weak, so he's smoking, but he's trying his best for Krishna. What a great soul." So, in due course, someone like that will become corrected. I used to know this one devotee. He's still a friend of mine. He was a very good friend in England. And every 2 months he would leave and just do all the nonsense you can imagine. But after 2 weeks, he'd come back, just like totally devastated. But then a month later, he'd go off again. 2 months later, he'd be back. A few weeks later, he'd disappear again. And, this went on for years, like 6 or 7 years. It was really, it was wild, actually. But he really kept trying. And now, like 40 years later or a bit more, 40-something years later, I still know him. I still see him occasionally. He's in England. He's one of the leading devotees in the yatra. And even he's very prominent in educational fields in the world of ISKCON, because he, by Krishna's grace, eventually got himself together. Okay, next question.
Hare Krishna, may Guru Maharaj kindly elaborate more on the bead bag with regards to chanting and hiding the bead bag as page 59 mentions.
You don't hide the bead bag, you hide the beads. But the thing is, it's just to keep the beads clean. That's the main thing. That little quotation from Hari Bhakti Vilas, we're not exactly following it all. So we're not really hiding the beads like, we don't want people to see them. But we're effectively hiding them, you could say, by keeping them in the bead bag, because then people can't see them. But it's to keep them clean. And Prabhupada once, in New Mayapur in France, he saw someone's beads hanging from a doorknob. And Prabhupada said, whose beads are those? Whose are those lonely beads? They are lonely. Anyway, I think that's the point there. So what's the next point?
Next question is, thank you for sharing your turning point of Vani service. It has been a challenging time with His Holiness Kandamba Kandana Swami not being here anymore. With your kind permission and mercy, may I have spiritual inquiry and seek the shelter with His Holiness. And I'm assuming that means Your Holiness, as in you, your humble servant. I think that one came from Anita Govan Mataji. Sorry, I'm reading it off the Zoom chat.
Anyway, whoever, and all of you, actually, I'm your servant. And in whatever way I can serve you or help you, I'm happy to. Or not. If you want, I'll help you. If not, that's fine. That's fine. Okay?
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. The next question is it necessary to undertake second initiation? And is there a big difference between first and second initiation?
Okay, that's a good question. It's not compulsory. And, some people just have a nature which is, they're not so much into reading, into studying, or deity worship. Maybe they just like cleaning the floor. So for people like that, there's no need. I mean, it's nice because chanting Gayatri is very helpful, but it's not compulsory. You know, when I was a young devotee, it was just the normal thing. You just got first initiated, and then 6 months later, you just got second initiated. It was just, that was just life. But things have become more scientific in the meantime. And if someone is really attracted to deity worship, they should get second initiation. They must, or they should, at least. If someone is really attracted to preaching and study, and they're, scholarly, and they like expressing Krishna consciousness, they should get second initiation. But otherwise, for your sort of general devotee who does general service, I mean, it can be nice after some time for them to get second initiation, but it's not compulsory. The benefit, the difference and the benefit is, with second initiation, you get the Gayatri mantras we just mentioned, which are very important and very beautiful mantras. And they're not superior to Hare Krishna. They're under Hare Krishna, actually, but they help us chant Hare Krishna, and they help in other ways too. And then when you get second initiation, you get the right to worship installed deities. Means like the deities on the altar in Lanesia, the deities on the altar in Radharadhanath Temple in Chatsworth. Yeah. You get the right to worship installed deities. Without second initiation, I mean, unless there's some very great emergency, you would not be allowed to worship installed deities. So those are the 2 points, two points, 2 differences and benefits. Okay, what's next?
What happens to a fallen guru's initiated disciples?
Okay. Yeah, well, it's an interesting subject. The thing is, generally speaking, to keep it simple, it's best to be reinitiated by a bona fide guru. Generally. There are cases where the fall down was a fall down. So therefore, the guru cannot now initiate any further. But if the guru recovers himself, to an acceptable degree, those who were initiated by him can remain as his disciples and take direction from him. And, there is one case who he fell down into illicit sex life, and it was found out, and he confessed and apologized, etc., like that. But then he really took a program of correction, and he became corrected. Actually, he got married, in fact. And, he's chanting his rounds, and he's doing very well. So the GBC body decided that those disciples who wanted could keep him as their guru. But those who do not want, they can be reinitiated. So some have been reinitiated, but many have not been reinitiated. They're staying with him. What's next?
The next question is based on a statement on page 52 of the study guide, which states, inquiries one makes should strictly pertain to transcendental science. Does this mean we are not allowed to seek advice on personal circumstances from the spiritual master?
Okay, yeah, right. That's a good point. On page 52, right?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. Yeah, many gurus will not give advice on employment, on principle. They will not. Some gurus will. It's a personal thing because they feel employment may affect your life in Krishna consciousness. But many, or some, I don't know how many, frankly, but some will not. Some gurus will not give marriage advice, but they will refer you to sort of like a specialist in marriage counseling. Yeah. So my point is that really it depends on the guru. It depends on the guru. Yeah. May also depend on how many disciples they have. Yeah. Some gurus who really have like thousands of disciples, they depute not just mentor, well, you could say mentors, and they do not give advice to their disciples like counseling. But many gurus do give counseling to their disciples. So it depends, And maybe I can just raise a point, is that we have 35 minutes left officially, and you had said, Bhakti Rasa, that the facilitators or some other devotees are going to come on at 10:30, right? And do
yes.
Yeah.
All the students have links to join their classes, but we just chatted now. There are a few more questions, so we can go on to 10:35 if that's okay with you, and then allow the students to leave. And if there's any additional questions, then we will get them through to you, and get those responses through to the students. But I think we almost covered most of it so far.
Okay, sure. No, that's fine. I mean, I'm free. I can go on sort of indefinitely, but but sure. I'll try and answer them efficiently.
The next question is: some devotees use Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 31, to excuse the performance of some abominable activity. To what extent does it apply?
Yeah. Now, I don't know if all you devotees know that verse. Actually, there's two verses together, 30 and 31, which are basically saying that a devotee, sometimes some devotee may really do something wrong. I mean, like really seriously wrong. But if they remain sort of engaged in devotional service, they don't just go off and become a materialist. Despite doing something really bad, they pull themselves together, keep chanting, and keep engaged in devotional service. Then the first verse, 30, says, you must consider them saintly. Don't condemn them like that. And then 31 says that they will quickly become corrected, basically, and find lasting peace. Yeah, so like that. The thing is, what this devotee needs to do, really, is read the purport of verse 30, because Prabhupada then addresses this idea what you're sort of suggesting of like trying to take advantage or using the verse as an excuse that, oh, it's okay to eat meat or to eat onions regularly or, XYZ, whatever it is, particularly something against the regulative principles, that it's okay because, Krishna says as long as you keep engaged in service, then you're saintly. I mean, that's verse 30 at least. But, if you read the purport of verse 30 specifically, you'll see that Prabhupada speaks, he explains that this is talking about an accidental fall down, not something deliberate and not something ongoing. I mean, or at least particularly not really something deliberate, but due to past bad habits and all that sort of thing, someone may do something wrong. But now you're talking about someone who's cheating. It's actually cheating. And, the problem with trying to cheat Krishna is that Krishna is not easily cheated. Krishna is a lot smarter than you or me or all of us put together, frankly. And if we try to cheat Krishna, we'll just be cheating ourselves. So that's what the devotees doing. They're actually cheating themselves. And, either they have to give up pretensions of being like a serious devotee and just accept that I'm kind of a fallen person, or they have to pull themselves together. TK.
There are a few questions here that pertain more to disciples of His Holiness Kadamba Swami and how they can be of service to you, and if they can contact you on email, or what is the best way to make contact with you to take the relationship further. Sorry, I'm just surmising it.
Yeah, okay. Well, Kadamba Kanana Maharaj is, because, he's eternal, we're all eternal, and he's just relocated, that's all. But he's not initiating any longer. I mean, that's, yeah, and the Vapu is not available. But anyway, I'm very happy to try and help. I've been through it. Prabhupada left this world, 1977. What an experience, my Lord. I mean, I have never had an experience before or after which was anything like it. Yeah. But here I am. I'm still carrying on. And I'm happy, actually, at Prabhupada's lotus feet. The relationship has changed somewhat because it's just Vani. It's a Vani relationship. But anyway, I'm happy to help anyone. Yeah, in any capacity. And the easiest way or most effective way is through email. And you've got my email address, Bhakti Rasa, so you can just give it to whoever wants it for whatever reason.
Okay. Then we've got the last two questions is, can a method other than beads be used when chanting, when out and about? For example, use of the clicker counter. What is your best guidance? Okay.
Yeah, that's also an interesting point, and, it's an important point, really. If you're in such a situation like at work, or, I would think it would be more like a work situation, but it could be another type of situation too, where if you chant on beads, it's not going to go down well, with the people around. Yeah. And therefore you want to, hide. Hide your chanting. And then you can use a clicker. I have used a clicker many years ago in the 80s when we were collecting to build Radharanath Temple. I used a clicker for a while. I mean, not all the time, but just in certain situations where if you walk around with a bead bag, people are going to think you're strange and be put off you. I know George Harrison used to chant on beads in a bead bag, and people would ask him, "What's going on?" And he would say, "I hurt my hand." So, it's sort of, there's a bandage there or something like that. Yeah. And also, if you have to drive, if you just have to drive, but you just have rounds to chant, as long as you're not driving in the city, where there's a lot of vehicles and, you got to really be on top of things. If you're just driving out on the highway, like for example, between Durban and Joburg, it's pretty much highway. I mean, you go through, you pass Pietermaritzburg, and there's some traffic there. But otherwise, there's opportunities to chant if you have to with a clicker. I mean, it is best not to make it like a regular practice, but if you have to, you can use a clicker and possibly drive as long as you're a very experienced driver and the road conditions are just not challenging at all. Because if you try and drive and chant with a bead bag, your bead bag can get caught up with the steering wheel and you can get into serious trouble. So I would say, try and avoid it. But if the circumstances are such that you just have to, then you can use some form of clicker. I mean, there are clickers and there are clickers. But a small, light one, which can be attached to your finger, for example, you can use if you have to. But try not to. One devotee, there was a fashion. I mean, ISKCON is such a place that we've been through all sorts of things, believe me. There was a fashion once to chant on a clicker. And one devotee, he cut a tulsi bead in half and stuck it, like with super glue, on the thing where you press it, the actual clicking device. And he called it metal mala. It's the metal mala. I mean, all sorts of things have happened in ISKCON. It's amazing. We could tell you some stories. Shoo. Okay, anything else, or have we reached the conclusion?
I'm just going to, there are a lot of questions here. But let's see how quickly we can go through them. The second question is, and hopefully okay, so it is, are there regulations regarding pets and second initiation? I have dogs that follow a regular diet and have second initiation devotees who come home. They seem surprised that my dogs eat dog food. I'm not initiated, but was just curious as their dogs are vegetarian.
Yeah, the best thing, if you've got a pet, is to feed them soya. Because then, you can get flavored soya, and it's vegetarian. Soya is low class, but it is vegetarian. Yeah, it's low class, but it is vegetarian. So, I know one fellow just recently, he asked me exactly that question, and he put his dog on soya, and the dog is fired up. He could make an ad, like a television ad for soya. Yeah, because the dog loves it. Soya is probably the best thing. I don't know personally some dogs, but I know some people who have dogs who just eat sabji, potato, some dal, and, like that. But soya, it's artificial meat, you can say, or whatever you'd call it. So I would say to do that. If the pet's already there, I would say it's best not to send it away or hand it over to the SPCA, because they'll probably just have it killed, and that's not nice.
Okay. We've got the last question here, which is, I think, a nice one to end off with, which is, how do we develop loving relationships between, I'm just reading it out properly, Srila Prabhupada, Guru, and the disciples?
Loving relationships between Srila Prabhupada, Guru, and
the devotees.
I see. How can you? Well, yeah, glorify Srila Prabhupada. Not just glorify, but develop appreciation for Srila Prabhupada. Because Prabhupada is such a person. What a person. It's absolutely incredible what a person. And to develop appreciation, particularly if you didn't have personal association, like if you never saw Prabhupada, then you got to read the biographies. Try and get all the biographies and read them all, because they give such glimpses into Prabhupada, the person. Yeah. So that way, you'll develop love for Prabhupada because he's incredible. And he's really loving. I tell you, a good one to start with is Giriraj Maharaj's, what is it? I will build you a temple. I read that last year. Wow, it is just amazing. And it gives such insights into Prabhupada. His personality, his devotion. Oh, yeah. And the Prabhupada Leelamrita also, particularly the first volume or the first couple of volumes. It also gives good insight into Prabhupada. Yeah, the Prabhupada in South Africa, it's also interesting. Prabhupada in Germany, that's a good one. That's a very good one. Prabhupada in Malaysia is quite nice. You know what? Prabhupada in Australia and New Zealand. It's really good. And would you believe, devotees, don't mind me saying it, but it mentions me. When I first saw Srila Prabhupada, I was at university in Auckland, April 1972. And it's got sort of half a page or something, me describing what it was like to see Srila Prabhupada for the first time, as a non-devotee. That was such an experience, that was. Gosh. Yeah, and anyway, so that'll help you to develop love for Prabhupada. I mean, it'll really help you. It'll just help you no end. It'll revolutionize your perspective on Srila Prabhupada, actually, to read, these different books. And then with your guru, yeah? Was it?
Yes, correct. Yes. Guru and devotees.
And the devotees. Yeah, well, with your guru, you've got to, you've really got to try and cultivate a service attitude and render service as much as you can in a real mood of service. Plus, you've got to hear from the guru. And in this way, you develop more of an understanding of the personality. What sort of person is the guru? Because the guru is not just like, I wouldn't say a thing, but he's not just like an institution or something official. He's a person, and he has a personality. And different gurus they really have different personalities. So try to understand him as a person. And it's nice, it's nice, at least from time to time, for the disciples of any guru to get together and have, just sharing about our guru, experiences with our guru, personal experiences, things like that. And it really helps to for the relationship to become like a human, transcendental relationship. But it's also human. It's not just like he's an official, the teacher sort of person. And then the devotees, will try to serve the devotees as much as you can.